Welcome to Mark's
Red Rum.
Murder
Red Rum.
Mystery
Red Rum.
Monday.
Hey, everybody.
Yes.
Courtney.
Hi.
Wow.
Thank you for having me.
It is so great to see you, Courtney.
Oh, thank
and
you.
great that you can be
Good to have you back.
a part of things. It's great to be back on the West Coast, the best coast.
Of course.
What are you sharing with us today?
Well, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Go-Go Beach serial killer
Oh, right.
from Long Island. And in that spirit, I thought we would talk about the alleged Chicago serial killer. So there have been many mysterious deaths in the last 15 months. And they do think it's a serial killer in Chicago.
So there are other major cities in the serial killer business.
Yeah. No, serial killers are,
Wow.
they're all over. Yeah.
Man.
But the issue is that this is not going reported, what's happening in Chicago for the most part. It's also happening in Milwaukee, and it's also happening in Texas. And I'll get to how they think that they're all connected. But I'm going to focus on Chicago. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So in the last 15 months, 16 people have been pulled from the Chicago River in Lake Michigan for drownings. Now, most of those victims are young men in their 20s who leave a bar or a party and then never make it home.
Wow.
And so on average, the drowning deaths in the last several years in Chicago have been about 40 to 42. So if you're looking at 16 deaths, that's about 40% of the drownings fitting the same profile. It is at a point where it's just too much to even be coincidental. And so...
So the community that's most affected is this late night people leaving bars.
Yes.
In any one area of town? Sorry?
Just in the city of Chicago.
Oh, wow,
just
that's a huge area. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, again, they're all in their 20s and they're all men. Now, there's been 6 women, but for the most part, they're all men.
Okay.
If we have the visuals, I can show you. If you can go up. So for those listening, I just wanted to show the list of names
Can you go
and
a
all
little
of the
higher,
accidental drownings. Yeah, if you can go up. Thank you. So these are all the men that
That's a long list of names.
that have passed. Now, most of them had alcohol in their system. Some of them had GHB in their system. But when they left the bar or the party that they were at, they were not highly intoxicated. So several of them either spoke with people right before they left or were on the phone with people as they were walking home. And none of those people communicating with them indicated that these men were highly intoxicated to the point where they might fall into the river or Lake Michigan.
Wow.
So if you go to the next slide.
They keep saying, if it's too tiny for you to see, it says cause drowning, manner.
So
the cause of death, drowning. They
Yes.
find them in the river, so they just put cause of death, drowning.
And the other issue is they're not releasing the autopsy reports for any of these murders, and the FBI is involved. So at some point you start to recognize that, again, this is too many deaths of a similar profile victim to be coincidental.
This is unbelievable, this number of deaths. What is it? What is the total number?
There's 16.
Wow.
The most recent death happened, if you stop here, Noah Enos.
Mm-hmm.
He was 26. He went to a concert, and then after the concert, he wasn't seen again. His body was recovered, I believe it was June 17th. And so he's the latest victim. His family is adamant that he did not die by accident, that he was in fact killed. Yeah, as is his girlfriend.
Remains found amid serial killer fears. Mm-hmm. Here they are, all 12 of them anyway.
There's 12 there, and then there's another. Yeah, it's interesting because...
And then 16 bodies pulled from Chicago Waterways since 2022 is in the next graphic.
Yeah. And so it outlines where all of the bodies have been recovered.
Can you go down, Kim, to 16 bodies pulled from Chicago Waterways? There you go. Thank you.
So if you go down to the next visual, what is happening on TikTok now is that young men are coming forward and talking about rides they're being offered late at night.
Oh.
So young men in Chicago are reporting a car is pulling up to them, offering them a ride. One of these gypsy taxis or, ghost taxis. Some of the rides claimed to be Uber. In fact, for one of the men, the car pulled up and said, well, I'm your Uber. And he said, well, I didn't order an Uber. Probably on average, the person has maybe ordered an Uber, but this is what's happening. Now, on several occasions, there have been two cars. So one car will pull up, offer the ride to the young man. He declines, and then that car and another car speed away. And if there's actually another visual of if you go down, there's a young man. And so he goes on TikTok and yes, that's it. Perfect. He goes on TikTok and he starts to tell the story of being approached about getting a ride. He declines the ride. And then he goes and makes a video about how two cars had approached him for a ride. He declines it. Now, that all happened in January. In April, he posts the video sort of unknowingly that there would be like so many bodies after, and that the same sort of ammo would be happening on the two cars. So if you look at these screen grabs, you can see the two cars behind him.
Oh, yeah.
But again, when he was shooting the video, it wasn't with the intention of capturing the two cars. It was an intention of sort of like a PSA. Yeah. So
I've never been offered a ride coming out of a club late at night, even when I was doing clubs every night. Did you ever get that?
No.
It's just sort of an interesting thing that, hey, you want to ride? It's like, gosh, it feels creepy just in itself.
Well, I was thinking the only time that I've taken a ghost taxi is one time when I flew into Kennedy, and there was a horrible storm and there was absolutely no way to get a taxi. I think this was before Uber was, or rideshare was proliferated as it is. So I took a ghost cab with like other passengers from the plane because there was no other option. But I don't. It would be weird to get into a stranger's car, I guess, now, even though Uber's a little bit like that. The other theory around what's happening is a connection to the smiley face killers. So the smiley face killers is an alleged group of serial killers that killed young men, that put them into bodies of water in 11 states. And there were 45 men killed.
Jeez.
All college age, all popular, all doing well in school. So seemingly they were all profiled. Now, with every body that was found, there was a smiley face that was graffitied into
that's so gross.
Some
area close
some
by.
Area close by.
Wow.
So sort of like a tag or a marker of those killers. Now, because of the similarities in the victim profile, and because these drownings are happening right now in 3 to 4 states, there is a theory that this is, again, the smiley face killers either coming back or somebody who's trying to impersonate them for some reason. Now, the smiley face killers, I think, occurred from 1997 to 2010. So it has been a little while since the smiley face killers have killed anybody with their sort of markings. But it's a really interesting story that is happening currently in Chicago. As I mentioned, the latest victim was July 17th of this year. So definitely something to watch.
Natalie Brooks is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I pulled a couple of photographs and information around the victims. It's difficult because there's 16 victims, but Natalie and Daniel, they were boyfriend and girlfriend, both students at university in Chicago, both killed, both went missing on the same day. Natalie was actually found first and Daniel was found later, both drowned. Yeah. And then if you go to the next slide, this is a young man, Paul. He was at a bar out. He called his friend. He was walking home, but then they found him again, drowned. And mysteriously did not go home, albeit he was on the phone with a friend as he was walking home. And it's a similar pattern with all of these stories. I mean, virtually all of them have the same pattern. Same with this young man as well. He was at a bar.
Jeez,
he left.
It's just brutal.
Same with this young man. I know.
So
It's
this
awful.
is it gay, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Randomness to everything.
It's random. There were a couple victims that are slightly older. One victim was actually discovered wearing his FedEx uniform. So they're not
You wears FedEx uniform to a club? All right.
I'm just saying they're not all exactly that profile, but for the most part, they are. Yeah.
All right.
So very interesting story. One to maybe pay attention to.
And it's still very much
find
ongoing.
Out information around.
Okay.
And people who live in Chicago or have family there might have even more information than I do. But I thought it was a really interesting story. And the only reason it gained some traction was because of the Gilgo Beach murders. And a lot of people were saying, this is happening in our state. This is happening in our city. And it's going unreported or underreported, I should say. So, yeah.
Wow.
Really interesting.
That really is
story.
interesting.
Yeah.
And you think that, you mentioned linkage. You think that there is a link to the Long Island situation just in raising profile, or do you think there actually might be a link in terms of, is it a copycat? It's clearly, I don't think it's a copycat, right? Because it predated it.
Well.
Or did it?
It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, the smiley face killers conducted their crimes in 11 states and 45 men were killed. So, and that happened a long time ago. But because of the profile of the victims and because the way the victims are being killed, some people are linking the smiley face killers to this alleged serial killer in Chicago. The reason it was linked to Long Beach is because I don't know how to say this. For the most part, sort of, there were in the 70s more highly reported serial killers, right? And now it's somewhat fewer, at least reported, or crimes happening with serial killers. And so the idea that there's these serial killers happening at the same time, when Gilgo Beach murder, the serial killer was arrested, it was mentioned that these killings that are happening in these states with the same pattern and the same victim are, as I mentioned, going underreported. So
I thought of you over the last few days, actually as early as late last week, because there is a story emerging in Southern California that I thought you actually might end up doing. It's maybe one to do next week.
Yeah.
It involves a young soldier, a love triangle, a revelation, and a murder accusation, and now a murder indictment. I think they are indicting this guy for murder. And I think I'm pushing for you to do it for next week because I think it's fascinating because there's one outstanding feature about it. There is no what?
Body.
Correct. There is
and
no body.
And that's very hard to prosecute.
Right.
It's really, really difficult.
So, Courtney, as our expert in this field, I would love for you I will campaign during the week for you maybe to give it some coverage next week.
No body, no crime.
Courtney, everybody. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you for having me.
That's Mark's Murder Mystery Monday
Thank
for
you. Thank you,
today.
Kim.
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday on The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.